The top of the acorn split open, and one small shoot came out the top, bland and blonde, and optimistic. The first day was just a morsel. The next day, it shot up to 1/2 inch, what would become twinned leaves twined around each other, visible at the top, and then it added another inch. Trees' cells multiplied with intense fury in a crazy burst of eagerness to embrace sunlight, and full of the heat of growth, of desire, of the need of the lonely to find, keep, have, and maintain love, the little sprout peeked out from the drought crack in the earth and up into the pure air of Topanga, as human beings have been wont to call this magical place of trees and deer and dust and sky and light and dark. Tree recognized more and more neighbors each and every day. The sage, a tribe of many, seemed so dry and brave, no fear in the face of heat and rainless weather. The smell of the sage dominated every other smell: dust, sweat, dry grass. The white sage, with the dusty undernote of the so-called cowboy sage, was the primary note of summer in Topanga, and Tree enjoyed the scent of these living plants. The scent was the spirit of the plant released to the world as gift. As the sun dragged down to the embrace of the West Hills, Tree saw something startling in the brown mud. Little flecks of light green, hundreds of them, tiny little things. Tree was delighted by all the new specks of life, 360 degrees of them extending as far as he could see in all directions. From Tree's core, all the love he had stored up from the hot light, the compassion from the night globe, the yearning for water, the happiness from rain, it all came out in a jumble of shared emotion, radiating outwards, showering affection equally on each of the miniature sprouts. And, to Tree's surprise, an answering burst came at Tree in tiny sparkly shards, tiny as shattered glass, but as shimmery and pretty. The little sprouts were loving Tree back. But Una Vervia recognized that Tree was different and that it didn't really matter, because Tree's unmoving loyalty was something as splendid as sunshine. Una Vervia slowly turned E's blades to front the sun as the wind let up. The day warmed up, and Tree's leaves, now increased to 10 in number, twisted in the light to catch the rays. Together, both plants joined the whole field in soaking up sun and oxygen and creating green, green, and more green. It was a beautiful day, and both Tree and Una Vervia felt united in the shared creative endeavor of creating more tree, more grass. Rock. Maria Marta's eyes snapped and sparkled. Another spirit. The mysteries of the world she would have said that she knew continued to unfurl. An earthquake was nothing compared to the shaking realization that even rocks could speak, and everything was alive. Happily, he looked skyward, where the night globe lay shining like a semi-translucent poppy seed, a perfect half-globe glistening with white pollen. Each of these leaves sparkled up to the stars in gratitude for the beauty of the evening, though he shrank a bit at the intensity of Rock's one-time experience with befriending a star. But a general noise came back from the stars as a whole. We are far. You are far. You are there. We are here. Hello. 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 So he responded, hello? Hello. Hello. As the night progressed, Tree realized that other trees were having this exact conversation in different spots all around and past E. The interlacing of star and tree chit-chat seemed a wonderful thing, and the next morning he realized that he was taller than the humans, taller than the deer, taller than some of elderberry's kin, than many of the willow, taller than all the sage and the scrub oak. E was feeling very Tree indeed. We're all going to see. It makes us crazed. Answered Tree. Lupin asked so quietly that Tree could barely hear. Tree, what is it like to live for so many years? I will only live for 2 seasons. What does longevity feel like? Easy question, Flower. I've only been alive for 3 years, so I don't know. But you have the expectation of such a future. What does that feel like? Tree tried on the question for quite a while. I don't know, Tree finally answered. I only know that it is beautiful and sad to see so many pretty lives come and go. Rock tells me that we will all come and go, Rock included. If it helps, I'll remember you. Lupin laughed. You do not need to remember me. No one has ever lived as much, thought as much, felt as much as I. I have put more into my 6 weeks than any creature alive can imagine. When I go, I will go with no regrets. My seeds will be the beginnings of flowers even more beautiful than I. Who could want anything more? For anyone who cared, it seemed a long way for such a tiny seed to fall. But the double encasing of outer shell and inner skin protected the future. Acorn slammed into the side of a hill, and it slid into valley land, right into the crack wedged into the dirt by summer drought, fully 4 inches into the ground. It might have been a little deep inside the earth for a lesser acorn, but this was no lesser acorn. There was a tree in this acorn, waiting for the future. Maria Martha's mind wandered to the open spaces of her childhood, the rhythm of a cantering horse fueling her daydreams, trees, branches spreading inside her head, dissolving the cramped ceiling of the rooms that they rented into the majesty of open land and infinite sky. All the beauty of her youth stored up in her head, an endless supply of fresh air. Thrilled past all measure, Tree pulled up from the tips of every strand of root, up into the taproot, up into its core, and then out through bark and leaves, an even louder answer. A tinier, thinner answer came back from the new grass. Tree realized they were busy sprouting, and sprouting was hard work, as Tree recalled. So Tree turned down the volume and sent out gentle waves of affection that required no answer. And when the sun set and the whole herd of grass panicked as a unit, Tree sent out, as best he could, a vision of the long first night and the coming dawn. Tree spent a lot of time that summer looking at the new biota, the new grasses, entire communities of plants bent and retreated before these invaders. Mustard, oats, radish. The world was forever changed. A new color yellow, a new color green, a new world. 2 more cracks of distant lightning, a cry from a young coyote wishing to howl away the discomfiting feeling of being at the mercy of... And the next crack hit Tree like an assault. Tree felt every tube of phloem, from root to trunk to limb to branch to leaf, simultaneously, each drop of sap electrically alive. It wanted to stretch each cell, each limb, each branch like a dancer to reach the sky. Was this what it meant to be a star? Was every moment of sunness this euphoric shout? The duff caught fire, and his lifelong protector became the giver of the flame. And soon the fire was lapping at Tree's trunk, racing up the sides and catching on the surface of the limbs, the branches, the leaves. Soon the pain of burning was like an arrow through an animal's head, unavoidable, ongoing and intensifying pain in one's most central part. There was no escape. His bark burnt, several layers of wood in burnt, and his roots smoldered under the burning duff. The heat made his sap hurt like drinking melted silver. His leaves went up like sparklers. His branches caught and held fire like a nightmare. He yelled in forthright agony, unable to hide his pain. The sky pulled back in dismay. This was not bearable secondhand. Tree wondered if he would perish and hoped for a fast death. Instead, this became a test of endurance. Long after that the men with machines came, Tree was utterly horrified to watch the road being put in. Trees and bushes and grass cleared. The surface scraped, then mashed, and hot, sticky asphalt laid down. In a panic, Tree woke up Rock. "What is this? What is this?" Tree asked. This was something new. All the grass and chaparral had been uprooted and buried. Snakes had been cut in half and crushed by the bulldozers. The older bunnies had fled for the remaining chaparral, while the younger ones, too little to flee, had also been crushed. Enormous familial cities of insects, gone. The wind whipped across the bare dirt, and dust rose up to clog Tree's stomachs and choke man and beast alike. Ah, that was it. That was the underlying melody in every thought and sensation, via every rock and plant and animal and sky and star, inside the water, from the dirt, through the light. And he found the exact words to speak just before Enzo fell into sleep. Tree told Enzo, "Only love lasts." Tree spoke clearly, "Grow and plant an acorn." Tree turned his back on the meadow's song and felt the mist rolling around his trunk and branches, a healing balm of moisture. He could hear the sound of running water in the creek, falling down and down and down to the sea, which he could only imagine from the songs of birds from whence the clouds had come only hours before. He could feel the groundwater growing underneath he like a promise saved. The quiet eased her. So many voices, so many hearts. Too much. She let her horse have her head, and the mare picked the way. They wandered through trees and across a long valley. The mare picked up the pace, and the girl let her go into the ground-eating lope that cowboys use for travel. When they hit the foothills, she let her pick her way up, and she found they were in Topanga. The mare found the headwaters of the old Topanga Creek and then crossed the confluence of Topanga Creek, meandering back up north. Too much. He was alone in the world with only bright colors of blue and green to which to cling. And the colors were not enough to quell this wrenching. Tree caught a wave of pure emotion, loneliness, the intoxication of solitude. It had been eased way in with Maria Marta. Perhaps this child was to be a friend? Tree released his own sorrow and tried to send a warmness out to the boy. Startled, the child looked right up at the oak, and his eyes caught and held Tree's core. He could feel the groundwater growing underneath he like a promise saved. Deer came over the black hills on the east, wanting to drink deep from the fresh creek, looking thin and hopeful. The rain dumped in again after the night globe came out. Most of this rushed down into the creek. Some of it sank more into the perched water under the hillsides, and some sank directly into the open stomata of Tree. He had not felt such relief, such emotional release since the morning after his first time alone with the night globe, when the hot light returned and all felt right in the world. The whole of the land was uncurling and leaping into hope and new. And there they were, intertwining above his roots, underneath his branches. Tree released all the love within himself and felt it scatter into the air, like a benediction, like a wedding. The process of acorn sprouting was completely beyond his control, so he was generous with bestowing grace and winningness on all and sundry. Tree had come to understand how grass might come to welcome yielding to predators. Without these beings taking his offspring away, surely every single acorn would fall under his canopy, doomed by the high roof of leaves and twigs to miss nearly every jot of sunlight. Sprouts in the duff under his own encircling ceiling never made it to 3 seasons in age. It was the lost that were found. He wondered where Tahui's people had gone. Were they lost or found? It was very cold. The stars looked very far away. The light blinked off in his parents' room. The earth spun. He knew dawn would come. "Oh, Tree," he said out loud. Tree heard. For this little plant, for himself, its core opened like a new leaf, and a burst of memories came, flash cut at the speed of dragonfly life, then stretching to slow. Una vervia, tall and green. Maria Marta in the embrace of her lover. Hot light. The glint of the moon through storm clouds. Warm dirt. Groundwater in his furthest root tips. The weight of acorns so ripe, dropping off of branches. The urge to grow. The expectation of 100 days times 3 for 100 times 2, 3, 4, even 5. Then suddenly the shock of one night left. A memory of rain pitter-pattering on his leaves. The scent of wet from his duff. The first time he felt the piercing loneliness from little Enzo, and the simple happiness it gave Tree to drop joy into the boy's young core, the sweetness of receiving the child's love.